January 30th started the season of nonviolence. You can read more about that in our newsletter. If you haven't received our newsletter, just email info@churchofonelove.org and we will sign you up for our email blast. Our beautiful member, Len Ellis, sent us some information about that. He's been working with the Dallas Peace Project. That's not the name of it. I know I say it wrong all the time. Peace Center for many, many years. And so, yes, thank you, Len, for the work that you do. And there's no mistake that the season of nonviolence is happening during Black History Month. And so all of this month we will be celebrating, even though maybe the actual sermon title doesn't necessarily match it, we will be using music and writings and readings from people, not just in ancient Black history, but in today, who are actually working today, like the beautiful Justin Michael Williams that I read from earlier. So today's message is based upon Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail. And those of you who aren't familiar with it, he had just gone to Birmingham and mounted a peaceful protest and was in jail with a lot of his good people. And very alarmingly to me and to any of you who think about what a minister is supposed to be, he received a lot of letters from local ministers and from a local ministers group that said, "You're not doing this right. It's not the right time. You shouldn't be doing it in Birmingham. That's not your city. It's none of your business." I said, "You're not doing it at the right time. We're almost there. We can do it so much better than if you by disrupting everybody." And he writes back I'm not going to read the whole letter because it's long, but it's a beautiful letter about how, wait a minute, yeah, it is our business. First of all, I was asked here by my Birmingham brothers, right? And they asked me, and I said yes. And for those of you who think it's not time, when is it going to be time? When is it going to be time? You keep saying it's not time, and things keep not getting better. And then he talks about, don't think that this actually is just something we thought of yesterday and went, okay, let's go do this thing. He lets him know there is a very distinct process that we consciously engage in before we take any kind of direct, always nonviolent action. And that's the part of the letter, I've read it many times over the years, but that's the part of the letter that always just ignites me because of step 3, which is not the step that any of us wants to do. So step 1 is just a collection of the facts. He says, a collection of the facts to determine whether injustices are alive. What's the facts? Is something going on here? Are we making this up? And as I always teach in here, every truth that I teach is a global truth, but it's also a personal truth. And sometimes we can't do a lot on the global level, although we are here to do what we're called to do, but we can always do what is ours to do on the personal level. So globally, when we see clear unfairness, injustice, law breaking, or the fact that the laws themselves are immoral, that is a clear fact that shows that an injustice is happening. And so personally, what we have to ask is the same thing. What's actually going on here? And this is like not just in our country, in our state, in our city, but am I actually being attacked? Did I make this up? Is this mine? Or is this something that has nothing to do with me? Is this something that belongs to someone else? And I don't say that as an excuse for it's happening to them, not to me. That's not at all what I'm saying, right? But this idea of what's actually going on. And I think when we take a moment, when we breathe, get out of our immediately emotional, not necessarily rational self and get into our rational self, we can see what the facts are. Second step is negotiation. And he talks about how in Birmingham, obviously, people were not allowed to do Black people couldn't eat at the same lunch counter. They couldn't use the bathroom in a place that other people could use the bathroom. They couldn't stay in a hotel that other people stayed in. They had to sleep in their car because there were no hotels in town that would take Black people. I mean, it was obviously, they got the facts and they knew what the facts were. And the second thing after knowing the facts is negotiation. You get to the people involved and you say, what can we do about this? Because it's wrong. If you are using your rational mind, you'll agree it's wrong. What can we do about it? And what happened in Birmingham, as in so many places, they went, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Okay, by this date, we're gonna take these signs down, and by this date, we're gonna open the lunch counters, and by this date, we're gonna have at least this percentage of hotels will be open to Black people, and blah, blah, blah. And the promises were broken one by one, by one, by one, by one. So it was obvious that negotiation wasn't working. So globally, this step would mean, have you asked for what you want and need in clear, concise ways? Have you said, this is a specific problem? Not, you guys are jerks, but here is the specific problem that I want to look at, that we need to work together to do something about. What can we do? Try that negotiation. See if you can put yourself in the other guy's shoes. See him from his direction, which they did. You know, it wasn't like, okay, now it all needs to fall. They understood that social things happen slowly, so they were okay with one at a time lunch counters opening and some hotels opening up. As long as there was some movement, that was part of the negotiation, but they were just lied to, right? But can you try to see another's view, and can you agree on terms? If you can, awesome, great. Personally, have you had a conversation with the other person and said, not you're being a jerk, but here's what I'm feeling, and here's what I need in order for me to feel okay. Can you hear that? And can you tell me what it is that you need for you to be okay? Have you tried that negotiation? Have you had a conversation with yourself about possibly, is there an attitude change in me that could help me be more effective here? Is there an activity that I can engage in that will resolve it for me without me having to change another person? Because changing another person is the one thing we can't do, right? We can only change ourselves. And then the idea is, and always has been, is that when enough of us change ourselves, then all of us have changed. Or a preponderance of us have changed so that we can reach a tipping point, and then the rest just happens even against the will of the one who doesn't want to change. And part of this conversation and negotiation is just the words us and them, me and you. Can you get beyond, there's a them that's against us, and can we say, what can we do? This is a very difficult thing to do in negotiation. It's very difficult to do planetarily and in nations and in Congress, and it's very difficult to do with the person standing next to you sometimes. But negotiation is what we're going for. We're going for a place, a meeting point where we can say that there is a we and work from there. Here's the third step. This is the one that gets me. And I'm going to quote him. Self-purification. We were not unmindful of the difficulties involved, so we decided to go through the process of self-purification. We started having workshops on nonviolence and repeatedly asked ourselves the questions, are you able to accept the blows without retaliating? Are you able to endure the ordeals of jail? Are you able to do that? Because if you want to if you want to not contribute violence to violence, you have to be ready to meet violence with something other than violence, and everything in your little human self will want to meet violence with violence. I'm going to guess that you can hear it in your own words when you look at Facebook or watch the news on TV or stand next to somebody who is voicing a different opinion from yours, who is totally, incredibly, obviously wrong. right? Can you not be triggered? And this is serious, serious stuff. And Martin Luther King, when he first started his journey, he was armed. He believed, this is serious, they're armed, we got to arm. We can't fight against armed people. If we're not armed, it'll never work. And then he studied the Buddha, and he studied Gandhi, and he came to realize, no, actually, meeting arms with arms only ever results in more war. Only, ever, always. And the only thing that can result in peace is to meet violence with nonviolence. There's an apocryphal story about Martin Luther King that I love, and it's sort of debated whether it really happened or not, but it's a great story anyway, which is that Martin Luther King was at a fair, carnival kind of citywide event, and being celebrated. He spoke that day, and a very well-dressed, distinguished-looking white man came up to him and said, "Excuse me, are you Martin Luther King?" And he said, "Yes, sir, I am." And the man spit in his face. And Martin Luther King took a breath. He took his handkerchief out of his pocket. He wiped the spit from his face. And he said, "I believe this belongs to you." And walked away. I believe this belongs to you. When someone gives hate to me, I can take it and make it mine. And then hate has won. But if I am very clear, no. The hate in this situation, the violence in this situation is all on your part. I refuse to go there. I refuse to go there. I refuse to be baited. I refused to make the worst in you bring out the worst in me. And that is hard to do, y'all. It is really, really, really hard to do. And globally means that you can't just move right away. They had to take the third step. There was first step, there was a second step. Now let's go. Let's get into action. No, he said. No. Do not skip this. This is the only thing that will possibly make it effective. And so plan, not plan to be violent, but plan to be non-violent. There's a difference. Knowing it will be hard, knowing you will be challenged. Asking yourself, how deep is my commitment to being non-violent? He says, I'm going to quote, "The Negro has many pent-up resentments and latent frustrations. He has to get them out. So let him march sometime. Let him have his prayer pilgrimages to City Hall. If his repressed emotions do not come out in these non-violent ways, they will come out in ominous expressions of violence. This is not a threat. This is a fact of history. So I have not said to my people, get rid of your discontent. But I have tried to say that this is normal and healthy discontent and can be channeled through the creative outlet of nonviolent direct action." So on the personal front, if action involving another must be taken, can I first clean up my own side of the street? Can I go out there? And Jesus talked about this too. If you're going to look at the splinter in somebody else's eye, you got to take the log out of your own first. This is what he meant. First of all, wait a minute, what's going on in here? It's real easy to see what's going out there and judge it, but what's going on in here? Because in here's the only thing I actually have direct control over. So I think, can I speak what is true? I love this word, think. Can I speak what is true, honest, intelligent, necessary, and kind? It's a really good thing to carry around with you. Think before you speak. True, honest, intelligent, doesn't need to be said, necessary, and kind. Can I have to ask myself, respond from soul, from love, rather than from my emotion, my hurt, the anger, and the violence in me, even if they resort to the same? And the answer for MLK and his whole movement was, if you can't do it, it's not time yet. You have to keep going until you can do it nonviolently. And I recommend that you practice before you make any call to customer service. I started this years ago. righteous indignation used to be my favorite emotion. I mean, if someone had asked 11 or 12 or 16 or 25-year-old Melinda, what's your favorite emotion? I would have said, righteous indignation. Made me feel even better than love, right? Because I'm right, and I'm going to prove to you that I'm right. And I realized somewhere in my early 30s that I almost gave myself a heart attack every time I enjoyed my time of righteous indignation. I would get off the phone with customer service, and I'm talking all my friends, my family, distant cousins would call me and say, would you call customer service for me? Because they knew I wasn't going to give up. And then I realized, yeah, I did usually get what I wanted, but at what cost? To myself and to another. And is it possible? Could it be possible that I don't have to get mean and violent and righteous and all my blood pressure going through the roof and all of that in order to still get resolution? And what I started doing was simply this. God, I'm fixing to be on customer service call. Need your help in here. Because I'm going to say stuff that doesn't need to be said. I need some help. Help me. That's just really that simple. Be with me while I make this call. Say that to your higher self if you don't believe in a God out there. I don't really believe in a God out there either. It's all everywhere. But I can call on the better angels and help them shut up the not better angels that are in me at all times. And it works. It actually works, y'all. Try it. It actually works. And then, only then, is it time to take direct action. Organized with support. Nonviolent, and he says, nonviolent direct action seeks to create such a crisis and establish such creative tension that a community that has constantly refused to negotiate is forced to confront the issue. So you're not really here to make them change. You're here to create such creative tension that they see clearly something's got to change because this isn't working anymore. These people aren't going to leave. Martin Luther King is not going to run out of handkerchiefs. He's just going to keep handing them back when we throw our vitriol. And can we do that? Can we do that is the question we ask ourselves. He closes his letter with this. I hope this letter finds you strong in the faith. And remember, these are other ministers he's writing to. I also hope that the circumstances will soon make it possible for me to meet each of you, not as an integrationist or a civil rights leader, but as a brother. Let us all hope that the dark clouds of racial prejudice will soon pass away and the deep fog of misunderstanding will be lifted from our fear-drenched communities, and in some not too distant tomorrow, the radiant stars of love and brotherhood will shine over our great nation with all of their scintillating beauty. Yours for the cause of peace and brotherhood, Martin Luther King. So to be clear, this is not about just letting it go. It's not about capitulating to what we know is wrong. It is about speaking truth to power, but speaking truth to power in the way most likely to be heard, which is not to immediately get everybody's dukes up by having your dukes up. Not to set up defenses, not to become part of what we abhor, not to become part of the problem. Because this is what I know. When we can purify to the point where we can trust ourselves to act from that God space, that beautiful space that Jeff so wonderfully prayed about before, help us create that space of support. Help us create that space within us and carry it with us always so that we can speak and act from there. When we are able to act from the God space, from the love, from the peace within, then we do our work. Until then, we continue to do our inner work. Now, I'm having a hard time, y'all, lately. Sometimes I think I up here skip over to the solution, which is love. It's always love, right? It's always love. And might maybe give you the impression that I'm not in a lot of pain about what's happening in the world up here. I'm in a lot of pain a lot of the time about what's happening in the world. I really am. And my personal practice every day, is to do whatever is necessary to find a peaceful space within myself, which sometimes I've been practicing a long time. Sometimes I can do it within 10 or 15 minutes. Sometimes it takes me about 3 hours to find that peaceful space. So I have to keep doing it until I find it. And then pray all day to be able to act from that peaceful space. And in that peaceful space, continue to ask the question, what is mine to do? 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 And I believe, and I feel guilty almost all the time. I should be doing more. I don't know how I would do more than I'm doing. But that's just part of my personality. I carry this guilt. I should be doing more. And so as soon as I have that guilty feeling, I think, what is mine to do? I'm really asking the question, and I really want the answer. And I believe that we are led to the places where our gifts are, and we are led to the places where our opportunities are. And then it is incumbent upon us to grasp those opportunities and follow them up. And it may be as small as phone calls to congressmen, letters, emails, signing petitions. It may be reaching out to someone else you know is in pain and saying, I know that you're in pain, and I want you to know that I am trying to hold peace for you in my heart through this. It may be you may be an organizer. It might be yours to organize some big thing. I don't know what is yours to do. I can only keep asking what is mine to do. And to ask you to keep asking, what is mine to do? And then to act upon it after you've done your personal work to know that you can do what is yours to do. Because if it's yours to do with hatred, it is not yours to do. It is yours to do with love in your heart. I believe that with all of my soul. And I love you all so deeply. Thank you for your prayers through this week, and please continue them. I love you. So let's just take that into meditation for a moment. That little chant, all is grace, was not written at a time where I felt grace all around me. It was written at a time where I struggled to find any at all. And so this is the kind of prayer that we teach in here, is to know what is really yours to have, and whether you feel it yet or not, work from that place. When I'm not feeling any grace, is there any part of me that can know that there is grace? And any tiny, slightest little molecule of me that can believe that there is grace, I breathe into that place. And if I need proof, I need only see that there are blessings in my life that I did not earn. I was born into a middle-class family in a country that is wealthier than almost any country that ever existed before. I didn't earn that. I didn't make that happen. There's some grace. And with that kind of grace comes responsibility. So what is mine to do? Perhaps I can take a moment to explore all of the ways that grace has come to me, or a few of them. If I started to count all, I'd never get to them all in this lifetime. A few of the ways that I've been graced. And simply pray that grace for everyone. If reminding myself of a single moment of grace can bring me to a single moment of peace, I breathe into that peace and expand it in myself as well as I can. Knowing that when I raise the veil between me and the divine is just standing there going, I was here all the time, just waiting. welcome. And if I can hold that space of peace for myself, I can begin to expand it for someone else. Right now, just breathe into whatever tiny molecule of peace you might have and feel it expand within you. Know that it can. Know that it will. Know that it must. If you will it so, because you are that powerful and you are that loved. And as you expand that circle of peace within yourself, just invite people into it. Maybe in this moment, invite someone that you know and love, that you know is having trouble feeling some peace. Just in your mind, in your heart, as you breathe, say, come on in. Come on into my circle of peace. I am holding the space. And perhaps you can invite more and more people into it, maybe a whole community of people. A whole family. And when you have a little confidence in that place of peace, perhaps you can invite people into that place of peace that do not make you feel peaceful. And pray and wish for them the same peace that you pray and wish for yourself, for your loved ones, for the downtrodden. Knowing that no one ever committed a violence from a place of peace. And then we start to see violent people as people who are crying out for a molecule of peace. And then maybe it won't be so hard to lend some of ours. And if we can inject one molecule of peace into our otherwise busy, scary, guilty, sad day, that should bring a moment of joy. I have conquered that within me. For the smallest moment, I've claimed peace in a world that doesn't feel peaceful. How powerful. How wonderful. How joyful to know that I can. And then I can begin to expand that joy and include people into my circle of joy. And to know, as Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King so beautifully illustrated, I don't have to know how, I don't have to know when. I can certainly hope, but I know that this place exists and that it is our destiny to get there. And to cherish and give thanks for each glimpse of that inside of ourselves, inside of a single other human being. Because what we notice, what we give thanks for, what we praise grows. So we praise the peace, we praise the joy. We lift up. Any moment, any act, any thought, any word of love, we lift it up. And by doing so, we expand it in ourselves, in each other, and in this world. That's the way it works. And so we claim in this moment this power. We claim it. It is ours. This divine love is who we are. We can expand it or we can ignore it. In this moment, we expand it. And we say, thank you, thank you. Thank you, God. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you, Divine Presence. Thank you, Mother Earth. Thank you, all that is. Amen.